What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Royale YouTube channel. I'm your host, as always, Kevin Coleman, and we're back today. And I know it's draft week, and if you're watching this during draft week and everything there, but I've been getting a lot of questions, and I get a ton of questions about Devy leagues. Like, so what the hell is Devy? How do I do it? Help me. So what we're going to be doing today on the video is I'm going to give you guys a really breakdown of everything you need to know about Devy. What is Devy football? And if you're a college football fan and a fantasy fan, this might be a good way to bridge that gap without it being too overbearing for you. Because I know there's college football leagues out there, but those can be a little tough if you got, if you're busy like me, 2 kids, family stuff going on. Like, it's hard to watch 2 days. It's hard to get your wife to watch that second day of football. So we're going to talk about what Devy is and what can it be. I'm going to also give you templates. So below in the comments, you're going to see where the templates are to how you can start your own Devy league and where that comes from. So this is going to be an overview of that. I hope it's informative. I hope it helps you, and I hope it gets you excited about a format that I really love, but I know it's niche and I want to kind of expand it. So after the intro, we're going to dive right into what the hell is Devy and how can I get started in this fantasy league. All right, so let's get into it. Let's talk about, what is Devy? Where does it come from? And generally, generally speaking, like, why can I play it? Why should you play it? So let's get into it. So if you don't know, it's started by Scott Fish. Scott Fish is he's the guy. He's the dude in fantasy. He's the godfather. And really, what Devy is short for is developmental, right? So the way I talk about what Devy is, you have your regular dynasty fantasy draft, and then you add college players to another draft, a Devy draft, something that is, now people have done it different ways. They combine it, all that craziness. This is just a simple, like, hey, this is what they do. They do their dynasty draft, 28 rounds, and then afterwards they have a 5-round Devy draft where all college football players are eligible. And it just adds to drafting. And we all love the draft. So you add another draft in your league. So for example, this year you could draft who's on the screen right there, Travion Henderson, and where he's at, Caleb Williams from USC. And the way I kind of teach this, and the way I kind of explain Devy, is you get to keep them on your roster. So they're tradable assets. You don't have to do anything with them. You don't have to plug them in lineups. You don't have to do anything like that. Like, you're not getting crazy where you have to know who they're playing, like who Akron is and all that kind of stuff. All you're doing is that they're on your roster now. Now, if let's say you draft Caleb Williams and you have a team that's contending and then you lose a quarterback, you can now trade Caleb Williams for a ransom, right? Where's his value at? And you can use them. So really, it just adds a level of just competitiveness, right? It just adds an extra level. So for those of you guys that love Dynasty, but you want a little bit more and you don't necessarily want to change all kinds of league settings, adding players into the player pool is the best solution to this. And you don't have to do deep Devy league. You can do 1 round. I know plenty of leagues out there that just do 1-round Devy draft. So you still have a great rookie draft. You still have, those areas in there, and you're just drafting the top guys. You don't need to know about the deeper guys. You can get deeper later, but it's okay to just have 1 round of Devy, right? So for me personally, Devy is just fun because you get to test your scouting ability, and everybody wants to pretend like they're smarter than everybody else. That's why we do this. And then secondly, it just adds more strategy. Like, hey, where do I build this team? Team building is amazing. Like, for me, Dynasty and Devy is about team building. I love the team build. I love that way more than doing anything else. Like, hey, how can I build this roster, construct the best roster possible? And this is another way to do that, right? Now, when we talk about like platforms, so this is probably the number one question I get asked. What platform do I use, right? Now, the first thing you could do is use Sleeper. Sleeper to me is a very easy one. So it's free, right? Now, there's going to be some limitations to this. So there's some limitations to Sleeper. One of the biggest limitations is you can't like create players, right? So for Devy, like, you draft Caleb Williams, well, then how the hell do I put him on my roster? So here's what you can do. If you decide you want to use Sleeper, what I'll do in this leagues is, like, if you have a 28-round startup, add 5 rounds to that. Make it 33. But at the start of the 29th round, that starts your Devy draft, right? So I'll put that in quotes. And then essentially what you do, just add kickers or add anybody after that. It doesn't matter who. And you draft those players, right? So, Jason Myers, he's your 101. And then on Sleeper, you can go in and change the nickname, right? So you can change the nickname to Caleb Williams and then put him on a taxi squad. so that when you're looking at the rosters, you can see, oh, this guy's got Caleb Williams. It's in the nickname. I see that. Now, does it going to take a little bit more oomph from your commissioner? Yes. These leagues always do. So you got to get guys that are willing to put in a little extra time making nicknames and drafting those guys. But Sleeper is fine if you're going to do it that way. Just put them on your roster. Hey, this is how you go. Hey, this is their nickname. So that's one platform to use, and it's completely free. And it's very user-friendly on mobile, right? Don't use it on a desktop, but yeah, on mobile, it's very user-friendly. Now, if you want to go a little bit more, right? If you're willing to kind of put in a little extra time, I'm going to show you this. Now, this is my fantasy league. Now, old website, we know that. But the one thing that it does allow you to do, so if you go in here, and I'm going to kind of blow it up for you guys, it allows you to create players. So you'll see this. This is one of my Devy leagues that I've had. And you'll go in here. You can create Michael Mayer. You can create Kendall Milton. You can create these guys in here. Now, this is for a commissioner that really wants to go above and beyond. And if you want to do this, I will help you. Okay, like find my DMs. I'll show you how to do this. It's pretty simple. MFL can be a little bit tough to navigate, but once you get there, you just go to edit custom players and you can put them in the player pool, right? Now, once you do that, they're actually draftable. Like you can actually put them in a draft. You can create a rookie draft just like you would do on anything, and they're draftable in there, and it's easier that way. You just draft them and they're good to go. You create them and they're in the pool. So we've done this when we've combined drafts where they're in there, and you can have that. Now, you might be like, well, what happens when they go to the NFL? So what will happen is there'll be a duplicate. And what you will do in here is it'll say delete. You can actually go in here and delete the players that you want to delete that are the duplicates. Now, again, the one downfall of this is that it's going to take a little bit of time in terms of like, inputting guys. It does take some work there. So what I would say is if you're going to use MFL, you should have a co-commissioner. Someone there that can help you, and you guys kind of divvy up the work together, right? Sleeper is very easy, though. Draft your league, make them kickers, put their nickname in, and put them in your taxi squad. Now, after platforms, what about bylaws, right? Like every time I get this and I get questions about this, it's like, hey, so what I did for you guys is I created a very generic bylaw sheet, and you can find in the description below. This will go through like a template. Now, you can change however the heck you want, right? This is just a very template for a $40 league, right? Just for a $40 league safe, all of that. So you just scroll through here. The biggest thing I want to just make sure that you know is like, the question I always get is, okay, after the startup, how do we do the next year's draft? So there's two ways you can do this, right? So what I think is the easiest way, so what I think is the best way to do this is you combine a veteran and you just combine the draft. So what you end up doing after you do your first Devy draft, so in here, you have a Devy draft, right? This is the 10 rounds and all that kind of stuff. What I would say is that some leagues will do a rookie draft of like 3 rounds and then do a 4 or 5 round after that. My opinion is you just throw them all together, right? So the easiest way to kind of do this is you say, okay, after the first initial startup year, you can depend on how many rounds you want, 4 rounds. And that means you put all the rookies. So anybody that wasn't drafted in Devy, because there's always outliers. There's always guys like Zach Wilson or Javonte Williams who don't get drafted. Joe Burrow was a perfect example of this. He did not get drafted in a lot of Devy leagues, and then he was available, right? So you put the rookies that are available in a draft and the Devy and new Devy players, right? The freshman players that are coming in, like Arch Manning and Malachi Nelson, or some guys that popped off in Devy, like Riley Leonard from Duke is an example of that are still in there, and you put them all together. That means you're sitting at the 101, and let's say you have to decide, do I take a shot on, like, let's say, Riley Leonard, right? Or, Malachi Nelson or Arch Manning at the 101, or do I take a proven player that could get draft capital, right? So when I'm looking at the draft, like, hey, I'm going to take, let's think about a kid that maybe kind of, Tyjae Spears, right? So like, let's say Spears is there because in Devy circles, he might not get drafted last year at the 101, or do I take an upshot at like rookie or Devy, assets? What do I do? To me, when you combine it, it makes everything very flawless in terms of like creating the league, which can be tough. And then also it adds a little bit of like strategy. I need a running back. Do I take Spears and hope he gets day 2 draft capital? And I'm excited about that. Or maybe he does get day 2 draft capital. You do it after the draft. Or do I go after like Malachi Nelson? Do I go get Cedric Baxter Jr., Justice Haynes from Alabama? What do I do? How do I team build? And I think that is where it's exciting for me in terms of like what Devy can be, because it's really open to air, but you can do however you want. I would just say for me personally, what I have found is like combining those two things adds strategy. It makes it a little bit more seamless for the commissioner. It makes it a little more easy, right? But that's all in here. So that you'll see like veteran rookie draft roster, Devy draft. In here, it says it's going to be 4 rounds of Devy picks, but you can combine those. It is up to you how you want to use this. Go in there, make a copy of this, steal it. That's all yours, right? Like that's what I did it for you on that one. Now, when we're looking at how do you find leagues? So I get this question a lot. I'm going to shout out DLF Forum. It's really good in terms of finding these leagues. You got to be very careful with Devy, because if you just go in a bunch of leagues with random people, it can be tough because, you know, you know how it is. Joining with randoms right now and how many orphans are out there in terms of the league, it can be tough. And filling a Devy orphan is harder than filling like a dynasty orphan. So DLF Forum is a good spot. Be careful with scammers. There's always that kind of stuff going on. Other things like Discords, like our Discord at the Devy Royale. What I would say, though, if you're new, try to find 11 new guys. All right. Post it on Twitter, post it on social media. I can post it, send it to me. Like, try to find 11 guys that are like, hey, we want to try this format for the first time and do this together. That way, you know, there are guys out there that will look for new leagues and say they have no experience, but they are experienced Devy players just to rake up. And you have to be very careful with that, right? So vet these guys and say, hey, we want not experienced players here in terms of like learning together, right? And that's where I would say, like, keep this draft simple. This is what we do. So DLF Forum is one. Discords are one. Like, all those type of things are good for you out there to try to find. So like, be very careful with that, right? So like, you know, when we're thinking of like how you're going to find your leagues, I would just DLF Forum, how I found my first few leagues like back in the day, or on me, like on Twitter and those type of things. But I highlight, like, find some dudes that just want to try it for the first time, right? Now, mock draft is important. So like, I use our mock draft. So on this YouTube channel, man, I give you tons of mocks every month for the mock drafts, finding where the value is at, understanding that, right? Like, understanding kind of how to do it. Now, I also created for you guys this. You can find it underneath. It's a template Devy sheet. So shout out Jay Stein. He created this. Now, this is a very simple one. There's definitely more advanced ones out there. But you're going to see, like, hey, you're going to see a bunch of different stuff here. This is essentially, you can just, if you don't want to do it on Sleeper, or you want to do it separately, right? If you want to do a mock draft, or you want to do an actual draft separately, maybe not on there where you guys have time to pick, you can just do this. So you come in here, you say, hey, you have the first pick. Who do you want? Caleb Williams. And it'll go. And you just you put your participants in here, they fill it out. Now, I will say this. I wouldn't necessarily, you can make this however you want, the player pool. This is probably a little bit of ADP, a little bit. Not like this is probably from January. So I know you know, no freshmen are in there and stuff like that. I wouldn't necessarily do a mock with ADP, because the cool thing about Devy is trying to like extract values and be more educated than the other person. But if you have a player pool of just quarterbacks and running backs, wide receivers, and you just randomize it, and it gives you a spot where you can go in and do your drafts, this is an option. Right? That's why I'm putting it in the description for you guys, so you will see that. All right. Now, finally, what are some resources out there? There are so many good free resources. Like, I'm going to plug our Patreon because I like our Patreon. I think it's good. And, you know, we have the manifesto, we have our rankings. So we have rankings for every class and combined dynasty Devy rankings, understanding there. Our manifesto is over 300 pages of content. Also, it shows you like draft strategy and all that. I've done the tier videos here on the YouTube channel. There's so many things to go into and understand like the value. But the Patreon is a good one, like understanding where the Patreon's at. There's also tons of resources out there. I can connect you with a tons of Devy guys that can help you there. So, you know, for me personally, just going through the list and trying to like really get you to do this format. It's niche, but it's cool because if you like college football a little bit, you can kind of like, you can be that guy that, hey, I drafted Javonte when no one else did. I can do these things. I drafted Joe Burrow. Like, you can go out there and do that. And that's what we're here for, to have a little bit of fun. But I understand it can be very daunting at first. And it's, you know, the word casual gets thrown around too much. No, this is hard. Like, understanding how, you know, why does this player get drafted? You understand a little bit of draft capital, like value and all that stuff. So it can be daunting, but I hope that you think about joining a league like this. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions. Use all that stuff in the descriptions, though, man. Just steal it. That's what I'm here for. I create them for you to help you. So I appreciate you guys. I will, as always, you can find me at DuBois_22 on Twitter. Ask me any questions you have about the format, and I will be there to help. So I appreciate you guys. I'll check you guys next time.